All right, so this is supposed to be a bit lengthy one because we want to dive deeper into config map usage. So in the episode number 24, we have seen how we can create config map using values from literal, from a simple line separated text file, and an environment variable file, right? And we have got those config map objects created in our Kubernetes cluster, and we will be using them one by one to see how we can leverage them. So we can start with how we can get the config map value as an environment variable. Now to do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and clear this up and then say I will say get cm, so that will get me the list of config maps, and my config is the single config map value. So if I say get my config, okay, and then I say YAML, just to display what is that value look like. So I'll say cm, that's config map, and you can see that the data which we have is that key1 value 1, that's a key value pair. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and create a pod using that. So what I'm going to do is that k run nginx image nginx, and I'll say restart never, and then I say try run client and YAML. Okay, so that's gonna go ahead and produce an YAML file. So let me say pod cmpod config map pod dot YAML. So we'll continue to modify that. So restart R is there, we need double dash, and then it is now in the file called cmpod YAML, and that's it, how it looks like. Let us modify this cmpod and use the config map which we kind of generated. So remember that we had a config map called my config. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to use this config map to produce, let's say, environment variable within this container. So I'm here and just below the container name, and if I say add a new line in between, so I can say env, and then I can just say that inside the env I will say name of the environment variable is my env redo. So it's ideally generally capital letter, right? So the environment variables generally in caps, we mention that. And then I say let me insert a new line. Okay, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna put the value from. Okay, so if I say value from, and then in that value from, what I'm going to say here is the trick. I'm going to say that read it from config map, and that the key ref is something, the name of the key. Okay, and we remember that the name of the key was key1. Okay, and then the value okay, so the name. Okay, so I'll say this. So this is key1, and then name of the config map is what I need to specify over here. I'll say my config. If you notice the sequence, I'm creating an environment variable called my underscore env underscore redo for the container nginx. And then I'm reading the value from a config map, which is the name of the config map is my config. That's a config map object which I already created. And the value of the key is key 1. Okay, I'm not reading the value yet. So the value is there already. So let's just try to see if we can create a pod out of this. So if I say k create -f cm pod YAML, there's a problem. So let's just try to fix the unknown field value in this. Okay, so let me just see where the value is. It is not the value, it is basically the key. So the key name is key 1. Okay, that's what it needs to be. And then if I just run this again, you will see that the pod is created. Now I just wanted to see if the status of the pod is all right. It is all right running. And then if I say kexec, that's executing inside that pod, and then I give a name of the pod, that is nginx, and then I say interactive terminal, and then I go into shell command, nginx, the spelling mistake, so not C, we'll have to change that to X. Okay, so let me just run that, and then if I say env, that will show me all the environment variables. And remember that I kind of try to create an environment variable called my_env_regew, and then I mentioned that the value will be the value coming from the config of key 1, and that value is the value 1, just to ensure that what we are doing is the right thing. K get cm my config -o YAML will show you the list of config thing. You can see that key 1's value is value 1. That's what you can see from above, that it is showing the value 1. However, in my vim or the YAML file, so let me show you that also, cm pod YAML, I basically created this environment variable from this config map config, and the key I took is the key 1. So if I have to populate more than one environment variable, I can pretty much do that. Let's say in this, I can simply say that, hey, let me modify this, and if I, let's say, we change the name to nginx 2, okay, just change the name, and I have got one environment variable. And then if I have to, let's say, create one more environment variable, I can add it over here, right? Let me just say I want to add it here. I will say I want to add it here, and I will add one more environment variable. So this time I'll say name env variable 2. Okay, if I say that, and then I say value from, and then the value from is coming from my config map, right? So I can say config map key ref, and that's how I reference the config map, and I give the name of the config map, and this time I will name config my config, and then at the end of this word, let me add this 2. I use this config map 2, and then I say key is key 2. Hopefully I'm doing right, because I'm assuming that there is a key called key 2. That's what I remember. Key 1 is from my config, key 2 is coming from my config 2. You can also bring them from all from the same config map, but you can also bring them from different config maps. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate over here. So the name of the pod is nginx2. So let's try to execute and see if it can execute that command, right? So if I say create that, then get pod nginx2, you will see that the nginx2 is running, and then say exec nginx2, that's a pod and interactive terminal, and I say sh, that's a shell command, and I type environment variable, and this time you will find that both the environment variable got populated, one from my config 2, another is from my config, right? You're gonna have them both in the same config map and bring them all into the same pod. Either way is fine. It doesn't really stop you because it's accessible to you as an object, right? Through an API, you can access that as an object. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna cover the bringing the config map as a volume in my next episode. So this episode is going to go big, so that's why I want to skip just to watch the second episode for having how we can bring the config map value to the variable volume, and we will not cover it here, or rather we'll cover it in episode 26. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.